Hey, welcome everyone. We are live. Today we are going to have a super exciting webinar with a guest presenter from Microsoft, Mark Heckler, and of course with our very own Joonas. Today's agenda is going to be super interesting, really practical, and we are going to dive deep into creating Vaadin application, using Control Center to deploy that, and deploying it on Azure. And during this session, we are going to see how to create a simple Vaadin application. We're going to see how to set up a Kubernetes cluster on Azure. And we are then going to install the control center on the newly created cluster, and then using the control center to deploy the application onto the cluster, and seeing how it all goes in this live session. But before we jump into the presentations, or well, not presentation, but to the live demos and stuff, let's have a brief introduction. Mark, you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Mark Heckler, a longtime Java developer, and fairly long time as an advocate. I've done a lot of work going way back to Java SE and EE before it was even called Jakarta EE, of course. And Spring, for the last several years, I've been working heavily with Spring, as you might imagine. Worked for Pivotal, VMware, left, and joined Microsoft to do a lot of the same things I was doing at VMware at the time, and still working with a lot of the same great people on the Microsoft side and on the and now Broadcom side, the Spring team, but just generally lover of all tech. Now, of course, with the AI boom on us, I'm doing a lot with that and having a great time trying to see where it works, where it doesn't, at least at the current time. And of course, being such a dynamic field that changes daily, but it's all good. So I have a long-time admirer of Vaadin, and Joonas, you and I have for so many years just kind of barely missed each other. So when we got a chance to kind of catch up and do this finally, it was I'm super honored to be a part of it. I'm going to be talking about more of the Microsoft side of things on the backend side, which is kind of a departure for me, because I always like to say I'm an enthusiastic user of the platform side of things. It's not something I've developed or worked on specifically. I just use it all the time or frequently. But as we were talking before we joined the stream, I'm that kind of person that I'm dangerous enough that they give enough access to make sure I don't like burn down the house, But I like to kind of think I'm in the same boat as a lot of developers in that I just want to get the job done, right? And do it safely and securely and effectively. So happy to be here, happy to join you too. And on to you, Joonas.
Yeah, great. I'm Joonas. I'm scared. I was just kind of listening into Mika's introduction of over-promising all kinds of live coding, this and that. So we'll see how that goes. So
we can fix that immediately. We can.
Yeah, if we cannot do that with this team, then we are. I hope we can do it. So
that's why Mika joined us, right?
Sorry.
That's why Mika joined us, right? So
I kind of in the previous webinar, I heard that. Mark, another Mark who was presenting, his internet connection dropped off, and Mika was thinking, should I continue this live demo coding this thing? And then it didn't go that well.
Luckily, in 2 minutes, he got back online. I got saved.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I am having some machine issues right now, so I'm kind of limping it along until we get that thing replaced. So the last time I did a virtual session, not to freak anyone out here, I didn't mention this before. I probably should have mentioned this before we got on live. But I was going right through, and everything was going great until near the end, the last 5-10 minutes. And then I just locked. Had no idea it was locked. I was happily just talking along. And at some point I hear someone say, he's gone. And oh no. So I was, for whatever reason, everything reestablished connection the last minute. So I did kind of this quick summary and wrapped up. So no pressure, Mika, but if everything goes wrong, I mean, it's going to be you two talking and me looking like this. But anyway, we'll see.
My intro is playing as well, so now the tables have turned. Mika, now you are scared. And
finally. Yes.
Right? You just thought you wanted to join us.
No pressure.
Yeah. All right, so let's get going. Where should we start?
Shall we start with the brief introduction on what Vaadin is? Could you?
All right, that sounds fair. So if kind of pondering about the audience. Probably you guys know what is Vaadin, but let's kind of give a quick intro nevertheless. So how I'm trying to think about Vaadin is that it's a platform for Java devs who build business-oriented web apps. And what we try to do a bit differently from everybody else is that we try to have this full seamless stack that goes end to end from pixels on the screen to the back end. We are heavily building on top of Spring, and we try to make all of that seamless, add tooling in there. And also now we are expanding also the deployment side and chatting about that in this webinar on how you can actually not just go to the server side, but go to Azure side or any cloud side so that you could have a quick, seamless path in there. Should we go deeper? Maybe, Mika, if you would share my screen, maybe I could explain a bit better from there.
There we go.
All right, so I'll do it like this. So, I mean, watching the platform, you can just go here and see that all kinds of stuff, like a really rich set of UI components, 2 frameworks, this kind of Copilot tool that's a visual AI-powered tool for designing UIs, and more and more and more. So we kind of a lot of stuff in the platform, but maybe easiest way to look at it is just create an app. You go there. Let's not yet create a full real app. Let's try with the playground. This is kind of fun way to just build something with Vaadin from scratch really quickly without even having like a dev environment. Just going to show some code. So if we put the simplest possible thing, hello world, on the screen, it looks like this. So basically all of this is 100% Java. You just treat those UI components that we had in here, like the text field and then the button, as Java classes, and instantiate those, put those on the screen, and then you can add a click lister right in there. So all of this running on the server-side Java, so you have all the tools from JVM in there. And what we recently added in Vaadin is also support for React. So you can also add React-based views into same application. So now we have a second view that is looking exactly the same, behaving exactly the same, having exactly the same components. And with that, the only difference is that the code here is React for the UI side. So we have the same component text field in here, the same button in here, and then the click listener as you would do in React. But the cool thing in here is that it also automatically connects you to the server-side Java in Spring Boot by generating TypeScript-based endpoints with whatever you have on the server side. So with one annotation, you can just publish endpoints and call these directly from the client side. So I guess that's like a quick intro to Vaadin. Any questions at this point?
So far, no questions. All clear.
Well, I have a question. So do you see this, do people get really excited when they see this for the first time? And do you, I guess 2 questions. And do you see this being kind of this grassroots, ground up, somebody sees this in a company and then pretty soon you realize you have, 20 people using it?
Yeah, it's mostly used by fairly big applications. So we've been around for 20 plus years and evolving over the years. So it's used in, I would say, boring business applications, healthcare, insurance, banking, all that stuff, where you might have like 1 million code lines and dozens of developers building those applications. So when when somebody who hasn't bumped to Vaadin before, the first thing that they see typically is this aha moment that, holy shit, I can build the whole thing in pure Java and I don't need to be touching the website. So that has been the kind of maybe the big pull because any Java developer can write this, and then being able to kind of build decent UI out of that works with whatever you happen to be using. I think it's kind of empowering. And at the same time, many people, many teams that have become full stack, they want to use web, and web has been becoming more powerful and easy. So now being able to mix and match also React and front-end tooling in the same stack. That's kind of exciting for many teams. Not for everybody, but for many teams.
Yeah, I have to say, when you say the boring business apps, I mean, those are the things that pretty much everything is built around, and it keeps everything going. We talk about Java the same way. It's right. I mean, it's that boring backend stuff, but it literally underpins pretty much everything that around the globe that keeps everything running. So yeah, that's a terrible position to be in. To have worse, more problems like that, right?
Yeah, the kind of these boring business apps, they pretty much run the world. So
Yes.
and hopefully keep all as developers eating every day until this scary big AI eats all of us.
Yes, I like to
at some
eat.
point in time.
I'm very fond of eating. So
Yeah, me
sleeping
too.
indoors, things like that. Yeah.
All right. So when we were kind of planning to speak about how do we deploy apps on Azure, so how about we create one small app, just to mock something up and see how that goes. So I typically use the starter project. So this is like a super simple start. It suggests some name, code Caribou. Maybe just Caribou would be. I don't know. What should we call this?
Caribou sounds fine to me.
Sure.
All right. So Caribou it is.
Caribou is
So
also a coffee company. So why would that's great.
All right. So I'll click download, and what I get is a zip file. So if I unzip that, so I think Caribou, it's already unzipped. What I get is pretty much this basic simple project. So I can just run it with MVN, and it pulls all the dependencies, and looks like we have a new Vaadin version today. So it's going to be exciting to see how this goes. And it's basically a Spring Boot project, so you can just run it away. Interesting. I haven't been using Vaadin 24/7 before. I guess it has been just published. So we get some more excitement and dependencies in here.
What could go wrong?
Fingers crossed, Manolo has done a good job ensuring the quality of the release.
Yeah. Let's knock on wood. All right. So the application that we got is like trivial. I added just like a one to-do view in here where you could, let's say, pick a date and we could add to-dos in here. It actually goes through JPA to database and all that. But obviously, we don't want to kind of develop it like this. So let's open it up in an IDE, and you can use any IDE you prefer. Some people are using Eclipse, many are using VS Code nowadays, or some derivative of that. Let's use IntelliJ for this one. So first off, let's run it. Oh, it's still indexing. What is this? All right, I'll do what you ask, IntelliJ. So let's run it with HotSwap agent. So this basically enables HotSwap in Java in a way that we can code and it updates everything on the screen without restarting the server, or most of the times anyways. And we should have it running, right? Yeah, we still have the same app running now. And what should we do? Let's first kind of clean it up so that it's doesn't have this extra view in there. We could just take it out. So we have everything here in Java on the Java folder, this task management view. We can just, I guess, delete it. And I think there was some test about it as well. Let's delete that one as well. So I'll just restart it just in case, because we made quite a few changes in there. And let's see if it still runs. It does. So it's empty. All right. So let's start by, actually, this is the empty one. So let's start by crafting something in here. So I have this nice button on the bottom corner that enables Copilot in Vaadin. And maybe we could put the screen like this. So if I'm enabling Copilot in here, it adds me a couple of things in here. So I have a menu that shows outline of what I have on the screen and palettes. And we have all kinds of extra things like documentation embedded in here and editing theme and so forth. So this kind of gets us to a place where we can edit this thing both with by coding and then also drag and drop. So let's add a new view in here. So new view and call it admin. Flow view empty. Maybe we should just have people who have logged in here and create. So what I have in here is that I have code for it and I can edit it in here. So let's say, what should we have in here? We have, let's map webinars, and I save, and I should be seeing that reflected on the screen right away. But the other end, what I could do is that I can also start dragging things in here. Let's say like read for mapping webinars, and I can drop it in here on the screen, and now have two things side by side. And if you're wondering why we are kind of highlighting this corner, it's just that we are editing this admin view component in here. These are just Java classes. And then we can start doing things like, let's say, let's wrap these two things with the vertical layout to get the nicer layout for it. And maybe that wasn't exactly the ordering that I wanted. So let's drag that on the top. And you can see it kind of just edits the code at the same time. Any questions this far?
Not from the audience.
All right. I'll kind of just then finish this with something super simple. Let's kind of put some data in here. For example, let's say this is webinar entity I want to have in here. Let's say we want to have topics and we want to have speakers in there, and let's say venue, and we create the mock data source for this table, and we actually even use AI to generate some mock data in here as well. Let's see if that works out. All right, so now we have webinars for artificial intelligence by Dr. Johnson and Dr. Smith. Maybe just to kind of, for the richness, add something more in the screen. Form. No, maybe not login form. Let's say this kind of form. Internal error. Okay, this is a live demo. So I restart the server and restart this. It's mostly about hot core replacement, because you cannot do all kinds of replacements in the JVM memory. Sometimes you have to actually restarting the server. So it's nothing to worry about. So I'll add one more. Let's select this one and add one more thing in this layout, just to kind of make a bit nicer looking view. So we have now a list of webinars and some kind of form in there. So it almost looks like an app. Oh, it's missing from the menu. Let's add this one as well. So have it maybe just add a menu item in there. Menu. Yeah, something like that. Maybe cog would be a better icon. All right, we have a menu item in there. I'll add one more view just to make it a bit nicer looking, and then we can just wrap it up and deploy this application. So let's see. What should I put?
Looks like we are about to get a new application for marketing to start.
Yeah, you can have it. So if I don't know how much do you want to pay for it. Dashboard, some kind of dashboard view.
Let's see the end result.
Yeah, it's super cheap only for you, my friend.
I know.
And you know exactly where to go for any tech support you need. So.
Yep.
Vaadin dashboard, I didn't know that you can do that. Let's see if that even works. Oh, you cannot do that. It was AI hallucinating. let's put chart icon in here. All right, so now we have our application in here. I guess that's it for the application. We can use this for deploying this. So this is I mean, it's not the real application, but we have a login and we have a couple of views in here, and I think it should be even maybe responsive to some degree so that we can use it on a mobile phone as well.
Well, that was quick.
I don't know. Let's see if we where we deploy this and see how Mark does building us a cluster where we can put it on.
Well, shall we start setting up the cluster then?
Yeah, I'll just give a really quick walkthrough. Let me slide this over to my other screen. And that way I don't show you on the screen here. Let's see, share screen. Oh, come on, here we go. Share screen. Make sure I share the right one. Otherwise, I just did what I said I wouldn't do. So, okay. So let's see if that comes through. So I created I mean, this, I feel almost embarrassed because this is so easy to do. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So I just created a very simple script to create the AKS resources and deploy Vaadin. I do want to say there are certain, well, let me start the script running and then we can have a little more of a good jaw session here. I'm going to just go here and we'll kick that off. So it's going to go ahead and create the resource group. And then we'll go ahead and create the resources in there. So all I'm doing here is creating the resource group in West US region. You know, you can choose, you know, around the world. I just chose this because it seemed to make more sense for Joonas and me based on our location. Sorry, Mika. And then I'm just going ahead and making sure I have access to go ahead and create a cluster. And then, like I said, this is so embarrassingly easy. This is one of the advantages of AKS.
Hey, let me ask a stupid question first.
Oh, sure. I like those. I have stupid answers galore. So go ahead.
All right. So what is a resource group and why do we need it?
It just allows you to, I mean, I guess group resources. It's the name is a nice kind of self-explanatory, unusual in our world, right? You usually come up with some weird term that doesn't make any sense at all, but it actually means what it says. It allows you to keep everything neatly contained within and associated, so that if you want to, as I like to say, burn it to the ground, you can just delete the resource group and everything goes away. You can also administer and manage it as one kind of in one centralized place, so to speak. So
that makes total sense.
Yeah. Weird that we have a term that makes sense, right? I mean, we try to avoid that happening, but sometimes these things slip through. And I say we in terms of the industry in general, not just Microsoft. I mean, I think we're all a little burned by that, but
so, I recall like many years ago when started playing with clouds, I ended up making some resource in Amazon's cloud that even today I don't know how to delete from there. So they're kind of they don't cost much, but they cost me every month because I don't know how to. So if they would be in a resource group, I could burn it to ground at once.
Well, you know, it's funny. I don't want to like throw stones at anyone because we all have. I guess we all in some ways live in glass houses or at least have glass windows, right? But I will say this, that a competitor's control panel or I guess main cloud management screen always kind of struck me like a different one particular IDE's capabilities. Everything's in there. It's just really hard to find. So you know you can probably get there. You just have to navigate the 50 steps to get there. So this is why I said it's a little embarrassing how easy this is, because AKS, we do try to make things as simple as possible. So even me, a lowly developer, can create an AKS cluster with one command. It just still blows my mind that we can do that. So I've got some basic settings here, and with that, it kind of takes off and runs with it. I do want to say that because again, and I kind of joke about being a lowly developer, but I'm not a network engineer. I'm not a platform engineer. So I don't know some of the intricacies and ins and outs behind the scenes. But what I will say is that when you start to dig into this, you start to realize there are a lot of really cool things that AKS can do for you. So it's constant health monitoring of nodes. It makes sure and repairs them when they have any issues, which is something I don't know that anybody else does, at least to that extent. There are the ability to, again, create, update, delete clusters in a single command, which is pretty awesome. I have a little list here I always like to go back to because I never can remember all the stuff, and then I feel silly for leaving out maybe one thing that somebody was like, well, why didn't you mention this? Well, I don't know. I forgot. Free control plane. So that's kind of useful for every cluster you spin up. It's the management, if you will, of capabilities are no charge. So instead of like 10 cents an hour or whatever per cluster, there's no charge for that. I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff. I'm looking up Azure Active Directories, integration, really nice. Any of the Microsoft capabilities fully integrated. That's really nice. Azure Arc, so you can manage even stuff outside of Azure, other Kubernetes resources very nicely from kind of a single point of entry. Simplified cluster management. I think I mentioned, but if I didn't, I should, which is ease of upgrades. It's like a single click upgrade, and early access to the early access upgrade. So a lot of times we get to, or we let folks kind of play with those, the previews, before anybody else can, which is kind of interesting, ironic maybe, but interesting. Some other stuff, of course, the security capabilities. And I mentioned the node auto repair, full compliance support, government access to that. I know some others don't have that, which if you're in that realm, that makes a lot of sense. If you're not, it doesn't matter. So automatic key creation. So you don't have to go through and manually create those yourself, which is really nice. Probably some other stuff that I'm missing, but that kind of covers the gist of it, I think.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of I'm a kind of a how could I fresh brain going to Azure and being overwhelmed by all of it. So first reaction was, oh my goodness, there is so much stuff, and it can be bad and it can be good. So when I was lost for a moment, and then I called my best friend, he's named O4 Mini, and the O4 Mini, he was really helping me out writing all these kind of magical commands. And after a while, he also kind of tutored me on what the heck these terms mean. So in a sense, I guess in the end of the day, it's great that you have all these capabilities in there, and you start to get sense of those with AI now. Even when you're like me, not really familiar about what that all means.
Yeah, I always point to my friend Bud, the network engineer, who I always lean on Bud because Bud has done things so wrong in so many ways that it actually brought down other vendors' Kubernetes installs, not ours, of course, but others, just from working with ours. So I mean, the power Bud wields is amazing. I try not to be like Bud. So anyway, so I've got, and as you can see here, it's pretty simple to spin this up. Now I left, we're going to be deploying to a different AKS cluster that Joonas is creating kind of on your end because you have the pieces in place there. But I do want to see where we are. So we're configuring network address. So the cluster stood up. We're just kind of making sure I can get to it from here. And let me go ahead and see if I can. Oh, I do want to mention this. It'll give it another minute or so to clean things up. If you haven't tried Azure, you can try it for free. If you don't have an Azure account, you can get started. As it says, there are all kinds of things here that are available only to new customers if you want to kick the tires on it. But you get a $200 credit, free monthly amounts of 20 plus popular services for 12 months, free monthly amounts of 65 plus always free services, etc. So there's a lot you can start to kick the tires on at no cost to you, which is kind of nice. Try before you buy type thing. I will show
my
you
kind of experience of pricing was so that pretty much everything else is either free or low cost except for the nodes. So it's really nice that the Kubernetes environment, the backplanes are free, and kind of everything else is kind of fairly low cost. So you basically pay for a server.
Yeah, and to take that a little bit farther, because I'm not sure that I'll mention this later. I a lot of times kind of forget about it, but you choose. Let me go back here. You choose what node VM size you want, and other resources as well. So if you have other resources you're accessing, databases, etc., you can choose different tiers. So even if you're choosing a paid option, you can skinny that down to the point that you don't spend a lot on it. You also can have serverless nodes. So you have the ability to effectively scale to 0, scale them down in number. You have a thing called vertical, I never can remember exactly what the term is. Vertical pod autoscaler, which allows you to increase or decrease automatically for you resources. So you can really get a lot of mileage or kilometerage out of, I always love that. If that's not a word, and I know it isn't, it should be, it really should be. But you can get a lot of distance out of your resource usage just by being very deliberate about it. So
I'll have a really tough question for you, and this might be impossible to answer, but let's see. So looks like I'm always kind of really cheap. I want to get the smallest possible node possible for experimentation. And experimentation, they don't really have that kind of much workload, so it would be okay for it to be slow. And looks like when you kind of look at the cheapest possible nodes, then you end up looking at how much memory do I need, and more memory, more it costs. And for my experimentation, I'm typically kind of choosing something with 8 gigs of memory, because then it has a bit of leeway that I can get everything that I need installed. But it's kind of frustrating, because if it would have, let's say, 2 gigs of memory and a lot of swap, that would be okay, because I don't really need that memory. It's okay that my key cloak or database or something just kind of gets on the swap and it gets accessed when it gets accessed. So is there a way to use swap for Kubernetes nodes on Azure, or is it like a general Kubernetes limitation that you can't use swap?
Not 100% sure. I know we have certain predefined levels you can go to, so you can tweak that, but it's within certain constraints. And I think that's basically to, I'll use myself as an example, protect me from myself. Because many times we think, well, this should fit nicely in here. And I did this actually just the other day, and it said, no, this is an invalid configuration. You have to use this with this amount of memory, et cetera. So I think based on the overall, I mean, we have folks and now AI, which goes behind and looks at all the different configurations and combinations, and we'll try to maximize for uptime, maximize for effectiveness. Now, as I mentioned with this, like the vertical pod architecture, you can actually have things, and that's just one example, but you can actually have things that will auto size things for you to some extent, but that's within those boundaries that are already pre-established. So I will say this, and coming from my perspective, and I'm an insider, so to speak, that when you go and look and say, well, what is the best way to meet my needs with the lowest cost, there are many, many different configuration options you can choose as far as the number of nodes, the memory, et cetera. And each one of them has like an A2, an S2, a D2 type of thing. And then there are like subcategories. So I don't have it pulled up right now. I can probably find it, but it'll take me a couple minutes. But there's a chart where you can go through and kind of see, what the recommendations are. Typically our Learn modules, and I'm showing one now on the screen, but our Learn modules will have a kind of how to choose your tier or how to choose your resources. And then from there, if the link isn't in that particular Learn module, which many times it is, you can go to see the entire table. So you can look at it and say, well, yeah, I get that that's the basic level is probably the best way to go generally, but how do I get this as cheap as I possibly can? Or how do I get this as robust and scalable as I possibly can? And it'll show the entire table so you can choose from that. So those are kind of the steps that I go through. There are infinite ways to probably combine these, but they are in pre-categorized terms or categories. So,
all right.
So ironically, I'm showing you this quick start on how to deploy an AKS cluster using Azure Portal. I don't typically use Azure Portal. As you noted, I just ran a script. And the reason I do that is because I use Portal, but I don't use it to create all of my resources, because always in the back of my mind, I'm looking at ahead, right? Scripting and developing pipelines. So, and repeatability, because in many cases, I'll want to be able to, we joked earlier about burning things to the ground, and you want to be able to spin these up and say, oh, that's not quite right. Or, that's great, but I want to change where I'm deploying this, creating this cluster, and from West US, East US, or to Sweden Central, or whatever the case may be. And it's a simple matter of, instead of going through all the steps by hand in Portal, to just change a single parameter in your script and rerun it. So I like to start with that. However, The portal is a really wonderful place to get an idea of where things are going and to monitor and watch and tweak things that may be a one-off or that you want to change for that particular circumstance. So it is pretty simple to do here. They've got the screens here on this module, and it also actually shows some of your things here where you can connect via the command line using the Azure command line interface. So they're not exclusive, and I don't use them as such. I just always lean more toward that scripting to begin with. But if we go here, let me refresh. And then perhaps let's, it's going to make me relog in. There we go. Okay. No, it's not. Good. All right. So if we go into the resource group, you can see that there aren't a whole lot of resources at this point. We got a data collection rule and the AKS cluster. So I'll go in there. And I'll just give you kind of the nickel tour of this. I don't want to belabor this because I know when people start looking at the panels, let me zoom that in just a little bit. Oh, it's not going to let me. Oh, yeah, it did. Okay, it just took a while. So I don't want to have anybody's eyes glaze over with this, but this gives you, again, it created a platform managed key right off the bat. We've got encryption at rest. It shows kind of your overall, well, it's an overview, right? You have access to your activity logs. If I go down here to, well, it's fairly new, so you don't see a lot there at this point. If I go to monitor, we can see even now, early on, if it ever loads, it's loading. So we've got some information here. So this is the log analytics visualizations classic. I can also change this to Prometheus visualizations, which is in preview mode.
And all of these kind of came out like out of the box, so you didn't have to install anything.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I'm opting for this, but I don't have to opt for this. I'll go ahead and configure this. It's telling me it's onboarding my environment. So that's a good thing. And it gives you updates as you go. You can also drop this down and see, well, it's basically the same thing. So if I go here, I don't have any kind of cost analysis at this point because literally I just spun this up. But this is where you would typically see, and this is always a good idea to watch, so you don't get those surprises, as you mentioned with the resource from another company from years back. But this is where you kind of keep an eye on things. Let's see, I just want to hit the high points. Node pools, I see here that I've got running a node pool here, but my scale method is manual. I've got 3 ready nodes. If I want to change this to auto scaling, and of course, it's telling me, hey, that your maximum number you've selected is higher than in your subscription because, again, I'm not trusted with much. So for good reason. No, I'm kidding. They trust me. They tell me that. Anyway, so I'll change this to 3. And of course, I should have noticed it's the node pool is being updated. Please try scaling again after the update's finished because I jumped in here too quickly. Oh, well, we'll come back to that. Let's see. Discard. Okay. Let's see if there's something I can't see because I'm not in the middle of still configuring. Let's see some monitoring insights. Let's see. Yeah, so this looks. If we want to enable recommended alert rules, it's very simple to do. They have a set of recommended alert rules that I can configure. Email myself when something goes wrong. So if I want to do the platform metric alert rules and maybe even the Prometheus community alert rules, I can just do this. And it'll take care of that for me. I'll get an email notification momentarily saying, hey, you're going to be getting some alerts if anything happens. And again, all this is very simple to configure. I'm trying to think of anything else that I want to cover really quickly. I've already covered, well, the insights. You can see a nice refreshing set. Well, no data returned yet. But anyway, you kind of get the idea. Anything else I want to show really quickly before I hand it back to you? I can't think of anything, but you have kind of almost infinite configurability. And again, most of this started from this single command. So, again, I've tweaked it a little bit, but the heavy lifting is done from a single command. Oh, I do want to show one thing if I can find it here really quickly. So upgrades. So it'll tell me, 131.7, automatic upgrade is disabled. So you can do an automatic upgrade, but if not, there'll be a choice here that I can choose. Just, it is updating now. So
all right. You can put the schedule in there like Sunday evenings only or something like that.
Yeah, so you can do that, or you can have it where it manually waits for you and you say, oh, I see it. I have an update, but I don't want to update anything yet. I don't want to upgrade it. So you control that. entirely, or you can have it set to auto upgrade. But if you do manually, if you do control this where you have to opt to upgrade, it is literally a button click and it upgrades and it does all the heavy lifting for you. So that's pretty slick. Again, from a developer perspective, that's a really nice thing because I want the power of Kubernetes. I just don't want to have to go through some of the pain behind the scenes, sort of like JavaScript, right? I guess that's a pretty nice segue back to a lot of the power that Vaadin has, is that if I want to have the ability to do some really great web-based applications, I want to stay in Java as much as I can and let some of the tooling do some of that heavy lifting for me. So with that, I will go ahead and hand it back to you. And then
there's a question
sure.
by John Melody. So what's the difference between Azure App Service with 3 instances and AKS cluster with 3 nodes? Especially in the case of running Vaadin app.
Within the context of a Vaadin app, I'm not 100% sure. I may have to punt that to you, but what I will say is that App Service has a lot more. Just from the Azure side, I can answer that, but I'll leave you to respond to the other part of that. App Service is a lot more of a self-contained developer. How do I put this? AKS has all the power. And even though we've provided a lot of capabilities that make it pretty simple to configure and manage and run Kubernetes, you can't get much simpler than something that's custom built, that's purpose built to run an app. And that's kind of what App Service is. We also have things like Azure Container Apps, which is, and I'm grossly oversimplifying here. So if anybody's like technically aware of some of these things, don't cringe. I'm just trying to keep it at a higher level. But ACA is kind of like an app service, but it's built around the idea of containerized applications that you provide the container in many cases using something like Azure Container Registry and whatnot to feed that. So app service is very, very purpose built for apps. AKS is purpose built for platform and capabilities of running and managing and scaling apps. So it's a little different focus, a little different priority on ease of use versus raw, unbridled power.
Yeah.
And now I'll turn it back to you on the other part of that when running a Vaadin app.
Yeah, I guess you can use both. We are now kind of mostly focusing on Kubernetes, on what we try to optimize for. And the reason is not just the raw power. It's nice to have the raw power. Basically, everything is possible with Kubernetes, but it's also it's kind of lingua franca of clusters nowadays. So you can run the same Kubernetes cluster on anything. So you are not kind of locked into one part of our cloud. You can move around, and whether that's a good thing or bad thing, I don't know. The raw power, the monster of Kubernetes underneath, we try to be taming that with Vaadin Control Center, make it a bit easier to approach so that you get all the kind of setup done by default to be decent.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see more convergence over time. We've already seen a lot. Like I mean, who would have thought 3 years ago that Kubernetes would be this easy to create a cluster and to manage? So I mean, the huge progress has been made. But you know, of course, we get better on the other factor as well. So app service is really super easy to work with from an app developer perspective. So there will be convergence, but it's all getting better, I guess. So we'll see.
Exactly. There are a couple of other questions. Maybe we get back to these in a bit.
Let's do so.
Yeah. All right. So should we turn it over to myself and let's see if I can deploy our new app in there.
And before that, I just wanted to say to Mark that using the CLI to create your cluster, I love that approach. I'm a huge proponent of everything as a code, and that's in the realm. I just like that for the repeatability, and it makes life so much more easier. I'm a huge fan of that.
Yeah, and I guess I would be remiss in omitting the fact that for folks who want to do that all in code, whether it's Terraform, Pulumi, OpenTofu, if you want to use ARM templates or Bicep or whatever, I mean, it's all supported. The AZ CLI, I always typically go back to with shell scripts and that, unless you're using like GitHub Actions, and even there, you can integrate any or all of these things as well. But the AZ CLI is like when you get an update to whatever, to AKS or to ACA or anything like that, it's kept current. So it's right off the bat current versus some of the like third party. Like I like Terraform really well, but it takes a while to get those Terraform templates to where they support the newest release version. So it's all supported there. The scripting makes it easy. AZ CLI keeps very much up to date, but use whatever works. It's all supported. So
yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah, I kind of maybe a different perspective to say. I agree with 100% about what you both are saying, but also for me, it's nice that I can go to a console and start exploring and learning what stuff is in there. Like I created a cluster just by typing, Kubernetes, yes, Kubernetes, create a cluster. I create a cluster, and I had no idea about all these things that I should be adding in here to be able to do that, and what are the instance types that I can do. So in the UI, for the first time, I kind of explore myself, and the next time, then I'm using command line because I know already what I found in there.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I will say this: sometimes when you're looking for those different tiers, like for the nodes, what are my predefined tiers that I want to go with? A lot of times, that's the easiest way to find them is with a drop down. You just go through the portal and you say, wow, I have all these that I can choose, and what does it mean? What are my options?
Like going to, let's say, agent pool and then choosing node size. There are so many options that I have no clue what all these are. So it's kind of having those in a table and saying, I need like 8 gigs of memory, or maybe I need a bit more. And then I kind of can start browsing, and that's kind of easier.
And that's something that I will say that it's super nice to have it all in one place. But as I mentioned earlier, if you go to a Learn module that kind of explains more, and we do try to work really hard to make sure those are always up to date and kind of cover and give kind of the story behind the story. So this D280 SV6, what is that? What does it mean to me? Or is it meaningless for me in my particular use case? But also, you have, as you mentioned, O4 Mini, your friend O4 Mini. But Copilot, which is beginning, well, it is integrated now with.
It's kind of cool that it's right in here.
Yeah, exactly. So you can say, well, here are my needs. What should I choose? And it will get you pretty close to where your end result, if not exactly on it, right out of the gate. So
looking at Mika's face, I know that face. It says that you guys are going to be running over a lot. And I can confirm, Mika, we are going to be running over a lot a bit. Maybe you should kind of hop on kind of deploying this application that we created.
Let's do that. And my deepest apologies for our audience running over time. It is what it is.
Oh my goodness, we are a lot. I mean, we're having a great time. So I feel a little guilty, but not terrible.
So if you are watching and you are super time constrained, drop off and then come back after a while and then put it double speed, and we will be sounding like what is like the squirrels in that movie.
Right.
All right. So what were we at? So we wanted to kind of deploy this application that we just built. So this application that we just built to cloud. So the first step with Azure is to go to Vaadin documentation and find this place. Actually, there it is. Step-by-step guide on how to do this on Azure. And there is 2 ways of doing this. So the first simple way would be just go to command line and say something like helm install Control Center, and that would install Vaadin Control Center that then basically installs everything for you. So it's like one command and that's it. That would be too easy. We're not going to be doing that today. So the downside of just going here and just deploying that with helm command is that one critical piece would be missing. How do I create names? How do I create certificates? And that's typically the pain in the butt whenever you are installing your application in production. So instead, what we want to do is, before this, is set up a name server in Azure and connect that to our Kubernetes cluster. And unfortunately, it's a bit tricky, but let's I'll kind of cut and paste my way through that just to show that it's possible. So let's start from the very foundations. I have this domain joonas.us in here. So let's create a new record in here. We'll call it, I think it was Rasa, what I used in here. Let me go to Kubernetes. I just created cluster named Rasa, so let's, for the consistency, use the same name. And it can be, we just need one record in a domain name server, basically pointing out where the name server is located. And I don't know what's the name server. So for that, we'll go to Azure. Maybe if I would be wizard or would be asking my old 4 mini friend, I would know how to do this with AZ command, but I don't. So I just go to DNS zones and create the new zone. Basically, we could actually use, I guess, the same group so that we can delete the name server at the same time and call it Rasa Joonas US. And I guess that's about it. It's okay. It had a timeout for here. So let's create this. And now it's creating a name service for us. And if we go there and look at it, start up, please. Oh, it's still deploying. All right, so I get the name server would be something like this. So I just copy and paste this to Squarespace and save that to my domain registry. So that way, anything that is rasa.jonas.us gets directed to this name server in Azure. So now we have a name server, great. The tricky part is how do I connect this to my cluster? And for that, I need to be cheating a bit. Actually, I don't need to be cheating because we have the documentation nowadays. So let's go there and see what to do. So basically, we need to be running this kind of a piece of script, couple of AZ commands to extract the credentials and give those credentials for the Kubernetes cluster. So let me see if this is doable. Export name was Rasa. Export, what was it? Domain equals Rasa Joonas US. And after that, we can just run this command that will then give us, hopefully, this kind of Azure JSON file that includes all the credentials. So you can see them right now. So if anybody wants to use Azure for free, it's on my credit card. So I'll delete the cluster. Thanks for the resource groups.
Hold on, kind of busy right now.
Yeah. So mining Bitcoins or...
Perfect.
Yeah, luckily I have really low limits. So, all right. So that was the thing. Now we have the credentials. After that, let's create ourselves a Kubernetes namespace. So let's call it Rasa as well, and just send these credentials files to my Kubernetes as basically secret in the cluster. So this is all the prep that I need to be doing, but I need to had a kind of long chat with my friend 04 to be able to kind of figure these two things out. Luckily, you don't, because Vaadin team accepted my pull request for this how to code, so you can go and copy and paste this. So the final piece is actually installing the control center in here, and for that we have a bit of tricky Kubernetes configuration, how exactly the Kubernetes is connected to this extra DNS server. So I'll just cut and paste this one in there as well. And with that, we should be good to go. So now we have all of it set up, and hopefully we have everything ready for actually going and installing Vaadin Control Center. So in here, I'll just maybe add my email address in here. And that's about it. So that should be installing the Vaadin Control Center in there. So it pulls that to... So this is now communicated with the cluster in Azure. So Azure is pulling the Control Center binaries from central Docker repository and installing it there right now as we speak. So looking how we are doing with timing. maybe you could kind of take a look of another deployment in the meanwhile, as it takes maybe a minute or two to deploy. So what could we use? I think I had like a foo. This is my kind of naming. It's either foo or foo bar or bar.
Why mess with the classic?
Exactly. So Control Center itself is maybe I chose a bit too tight a resource in the cluster. So anyways, so Control Center itself is this kind of a place where you can basically deploy applications. You can add a new application in the same cluster, deploy it, or you could choose existing applications. Yeah, I'm definitely running out of memory on this instance. So choosing existing applications and manage like users for that application, localization, look at logs and so forth. So kind of a tiny management console for your application. Let's see if we can deploy this application. So it's still deploying the Control Center, so we are going to be using probably this full cluster and see how that goes. So I think it was demo Caribou. So in order to deploy this, we would need to be packaging that as a container. So for that, let's just go to documentation and check application deployment. And first thing to do would be to create the Docker file for it. So let's just create the Docker file. And with that, we could build it. But I think there is also a good practice to add this Control Center dependency for our project. And what that does is that it connects your application better with the Control Center, giving you things like authentication automatically configured for your Spring app. So we could do that as well. So let's take this and have a POM file in here, and in the POM file just add this dependency, and let's refresh this one as well. So now when we have the dependency in there, we can compile our application. So like MVN package production, and after compiling, we just then create the Docker container for it. So let's have it compile first. Looks like the 24/7 tree is working just as expected, so that's good. So Docker, what I'm typically using to build this is, because I'm running this on a Mac that has an ARM CPU, so I'm using this Docker build X that can build multi-platform binaries, so it supports both the Intel and ARM processors in here. So let's call it Caribou 1 and version 1. So that should be quick to build, and after that we just push it out to some registry like this, and there we have it. So now I use the public registry for this. This is just a dumb app, so feel free to enjoy it for free, Mika. You were asking to use this as marketing. It's out there. But I guess the right way to go would be to set up a registry in Azure. And it's also like one button click away or one command line away just to set up the registry so that you can push your private images to that registry instead. So let's see if actually, our Control Center has been deployed in the meanwhile, so we can maybe use this one. So first off, we just open it up. As you can see, it actually created this new name, hopefully, called control.rasa.joonas.us. So Control Center went and told the DNS server in Azure that now you should have this new name. And if you are super lucky, it was quick enough also to create certificates for that. And these are real certificates that are done with the Let's Encrypt service. So we're requesting certificates for these domains as well. And it also tracks down the timeline. So when those expire, automatically fetches a new ones as well. So I think our access account was Joonas@vaadin.com in here. And the password itself is one-time secret that you can get with this command. So it's this magical password. Not now. Maybe I'll just create a new password for this. Let's call it foo, so that it's a really open access for everybody to go in there. Don't go in there yet because I have just 8 gigs of memory on this instance. So not now. So I'm Joonas. All right. So now we have a clean, empty control center, and we can manage applications and go and install our new application that was called Caribou. And it was like this. What else? So the application URL, we could deploy that to the domain directly, or we could give it a new name. Either way, it just creates those in DNS server. So we could actually use it, this Caribou main domain. Caribou. Please warn me for typos if I typo this. I'm going to be having a hard time getting this to work. And we generate the certificate. So it basically means that, again, fetches the certificate from Let's Encrypt and uses those. And let's deploy it and see what happens. So it's deployed here as to this URL. It's still kind of taking a while. So basically commanding the Kubernetes cluster in Azure to fetch this image from Docker registry and start deploying it and so forth. So it takes maybe a minute or two. All right, there it is. And typically at this time, when I open it up, it might actually not show up. So let's see what happens. So the DNS registration might take a minute or so because it's kind of going around asking Azure's servers to register a name. So we could even see what happens in there if we just look at this name, caribou.joonas.us. Is it like trace? So it says that this comes from Google domains, and we actually got an IP. So it has registered. Maybe I just cached it somewhere. I'll use Chrome to see if that is cached in there. It typically just appears in a bit. No. Shouldn't take this much. It typically 2 minutes or so that it takes to register the name and go and fetch the certificates. Clearly, it is up and running, but Caribou. Looks like the name is not there yet. Oh, cloud gods need some minutes to kind of register that. I'll maybe let's look at the what we have in here in the meanwhile. So one thing that we do have is that if we go to Caribou application, we can manage identities in there. Actually, we need to be enabling the identity management, so let's do that as well. And what this means is that we can create new users. Let's say, let's say, because this is for Miikka.
Hooray! Finally got my account.
Yeah, it's Miikka@vaadin.com, I guess. And your password is foo as well, because it's a
nice.
standard on our super secure application. And I guess
remember
all the services marketing is using it, the password will be full. All right, so now we have one inactive user in there because you have never logged in, and you might not be able to log in because my name is not registered yet. So while it's fumbling with the name registration, we could also go and implement security for this, because we just pushed an application that we didn't do anything for security. We need to be doing a couple of small things, and this is just going to mention, when you're using this for the first time, it's kind of useful to know that you need to be doing those, as I fumbled myself a couple of times with this. So one thing is that main layout that we have in here, that should have some security annotation like anonymous allowed, meaning that anybody can look at the screens in here. If it's like completely closed app that requires registration, then you probably want to have like permit all in here. And I think that's about it. I think our views in self, they probably already had security annotation, like the admin is like permit all, dashboard is anonymous allowed, so anybody can look at the dashboard. Marketing is so open source. Oh yeah, one thing in here is that in the application there is this, maybe I can just run it and show it, localhost, this menu that says John Smith. I'm not John Smith and Mika is not John Smith, so this is just like a dummy code in here. And let's enable the Copilot and just go to source from here. This is actually pretty handy you can see at any part of the UI where the source code is located, and I can jump over to create user menu. I'll delete the whole thing, and instead I'll cheat again and cut and paste somewhat working implementation in there, just a kind of a dummy implementation that shows something more in here. I can put this code on GitHub if it's useful for anybody.
So see, I was looking at that thinking that was the way that you simplified things, like the whole Starbucks barista thing. Like, no, I'm John Smith. That's fine.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the way to go about it. Yeah, authentication context. We probably need that one as well. So let's see. Authentication context, give me that, something like this, and yeah, AI is reading my mind. All right, now we have implementation for security as well, so I'll just repackage and push this, and at this point of time I start to be thinking and asking, hey, should I have a script for this? So next stage would be like putting this on some kind of CI. So let's put it up in there, and hopefully our name servers have been coming online in the meanwhile. So let's build it. And push it. All right, so that's it for this, and we'll see if we have a name. We don't. So something went wrong in there. Maybe I just kind of redeploy the whole thing and see if that helps. Delete. Sorry, Mikko, your Caribou application has been now deleted.
And it's gone.
So let's create that again. Caribou. And what do we need? I'll call it something else just in case that if there is something actually stock in name survey. I don't conflict with that. App Caribou, Joonas US. And actually I could put the identity management in here and deploy it, and let's see how this goes. Fingers crossed. This is a live demo, so it shouldn't be working.
That's the fun part of doing things live.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that way it proves it's live, because if it were completely scripted, it would be perfect. Everything would work. Well, I say that.
Exactly.
I mean, anytime you're working with the cloud, there's always some kind of like network gremlin or something that may, even if everything is perfect, throw a wrench into the works.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a hard thing with these live webinars to figure out how to actually break this thing, because otherwise people don't believe that it's so smooth. Right.
It's just so easy.
Yeah, let's see. I do it again. I'm kind of really master of this, apparently. So I'll show this from another environment. What did we have in here? We had this Slate for Joonas US. So this is the exact same application. So in here, you can see only the dashboard view visible, because that was the one that had anonymous allowed. So the another view is not visible. So if I log in here with my standard password, that was foo. We do have the both views in here, so dashboard and admin views, and we can use the application, and anybody watching can use it for a minute or two before I delete the cluster, so that we can block Mark from mining Bitcoins. And so I even have my own name in here, and the logout is working. Actually, one more thing that I could show, because in addition to just deploying this, you might also want to have, where did we have it? This was full control center. So in here, we could also do things like choose my only user in here and say that, hey, I want to have something more restrictive for this pesky Joonas user. Let's say we'll want to have multi-factor authentication for him, and save it in there. And the next time when I'm logging in, it's actually asking me to create the multi-factor authentication in there. Or I could do the same for passkeys. And so there are kind of all kinds of extra functionalities built into Control Center that I can use.
So
all right, we are a fair bit over time, so let's see if we have some questions. And Mika, then you have to be kicking us out in the webinar, as we have been spending way more time than you gave us.
We are terribly over time at the moment, but there has been some questions regarding multi-tenancy. How about doing multi-tenant applications?
Everything is multi-tenant by default in Vaadin, so there's nothing that you need to be doing for multi-tenancy. With the multi-tenancy in this case, you mean like building a SaaS product that you might be deploying for multiple customers in the cloud in a multi-tenant fashion, like multiple. You can do that as well. It would create a separate Keycloak instance for each one of those customers, so they have their own realms and they're kept separately. But I don't know whether that is the actual meaning of the question. So every Vaadin application is multi-tenant by itself, so multiple users in there, but you could also deploy multiple servers side by side with the control center.
Yeah, so I mean, there can be like different types of multi-tenancy, and I think in case of Vaadin, we are talking about like multi-instance type of multi-tenancy.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean, cool. I could well deploy a second application in here if.
Yeah. Cool. Lots of love, lots of Vaadin love around the world. So that sounds good.
That is great.
Nice. And we also got the AKS cluster question with 3 nodes covered, right? Didn't we?
Yeah.
Yes, we did. Yeah. So it seems that we really don't have any open questions at the moment. So
either we were so boring that nobody wants to ask questions, or we were so complete in all
Mika
this.
is breathing a sigh of relief. He's like, oh, thank goodness, because we're already over time, and oh no.
Yeah.
But in case you have some questions after the session, or if you happen to watch the recording afterwards, we will have a thread created in Vaadin forum. So please join us for discussion and present your questions there. And that's an awesome place to continue the conversation.
Yeah. Hey, one actually mention, everything that you did see in here was mostly free. The only things that you paid for a bit was that one node in the cluster, Vaadin Copilot, that kind of drag and drop thingy in there. It costs some $10 a month, but you can try it out with a really liberal trial as well. Or if you just prefer coding, you don't need the whole thing. Control Center is free as well. So everything that you did see in here, except that tiny thing where I added the multi-factor authentication, that was in a premium tier. But pretty much everything that you did see in here is free. So try it out and use it.
Absolutely. And with that, I think it is time for us to say thank you for our audience. It has been a real pleasure. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Joonas, for your presentation. I think this was really awesome. And as things go, usually with live sessions, there can be some surprises every now and then, but that's just part of the business, right? So thank you all, and have a great day.
Hey, one really quick thing. I'll just post the URL of this demo if somebody else wants to kind of try out, and because I was cut and pasting a fair amount of code to this menu, authentication menu in there, so that nobody else needs to be recreating it.
And you can share it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, I think that went to the YouTube.
Oh yeah, that is true.
All right.
Thank you all. Have a great day, and till the next time. See you.
Thanks,
See
everyone.
you. Bye.
Bye.